Hi everyone, I'll be covering March 2020 official SAT, the no calculator section in this video. Number one, the table above shows some values of x and the corresponding values of y. Which of the following equations shows a possible relationship between x and y? So immediately when I look at this, I notice that between each value and the y value, we have a +2. So from the x, we have to add 2 to get the y value. So in order to get the y value, it's going to equal x plus 2, which is answer choice A. Number 2, in the figure shown above, line J is parallel to line K and line L is parallel to line M. What is the value of x degrees, which is right here? So actually, we're able to immediately recognize, since J, K, and L, M are parallel, the rule of corresponding angles apply in this case, meaning that this angle of x is going to equal to this corresponding angle. And how do we figure this angle out? It's just the opposite of the angle that is shown here, which is 40 degrees, meaning that x will also be 40 degrees A. Number 3, the function f is defined by f of x equals x squared minus 5x plus 6. What is the value of f of 4? So all we're doing is plugging in x equal to 4 into the equation. So we have f of 4 is equal to 4 squared minus 5 times 4 plus 6, which is also 16 minus 20 plus 6, which is equal to 2, B. Number 4, Araceli can spend up to a total of $20 on streamers and balloons for party. Streamers cost $1.49 per pack, and balloons cost $4.39 per pack. So streamers are going to be $1.49 times the number of streamers, which is S. And then we have $4.39 per balloons, which B would be number of balloons. And it says that in this inequality, which inequality represents the total number she can buy if she only has $20. So it has to be the price of both the streamers and balloons have to be less than equal to 20, right? And we're going to be adding these two. So we have 1.49s plus 4.39b is less than equal to 20, which is answer choice B. Number 5, Bill is planning to drive 1,000 miles to visit his family. If he plans to drive 250 miles per day, which of the following represents the remaining distance D in miles that Bill will have to drive to reach his family after driving for N days? So essentially, there's a total of 1,000 miles he needs to drive. 250 miles per day. What are we going to multiply that with is the number of days that he does drive, right? So N days. By multiplying 250 miles per day by the number of days he's driven, we get the total amount that he already drove. 1,000 is how much he has to drive. D is how much he has remaining. So basically, from 1,000 miles, every day he's driving 250. So we can multiply 250 times n. It cancel out days and we get miles, right? So minus 250n. And this represents the number of miles that's left, which is also the remaining distance d. So d is equal to this value, and this is answer choice D, 6. Which of the following is equivalent to the given expression? So immediately look for which factors can be added up or subtracted together. And the like terms are here, x and minus x. So these just cancel out and we have x cubed plus x squared remaining, which is C. Number 7, the table gives some values of x and the corresponding values of f of x for the polynomial function f. Which of the following could be the graph of f in the xy plane where y equals f of x? Essentially, it's asking for which graph plots this table, right? And when we take a look at this, we have -2, -2, -1, 3, 0, 2, 1, 7, and 2, 30. So the f of x just represents y. And so when we take a careful look at this graph, the only graph that matches with these coordinates is D, which is the answer. Number 8, x plus 2 divided by x plus 2 squared. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to the given expression where x does not equal -2? So whenever it has this condition, you can ignore it and simplify the expression and see where it gets you. And so in this case, I'm going to basically cross out x plus 2 with this exponent, because basically this means x plus 2 divided by x plus 2 times x plus 2. So I'm just simplifying this, which is equal to 1 over x plus 2, which is B. Number 9. Which of the following is an equation of the line in the xy plane that contains the points 1, 3, and 5, 15? So this is a simple slope-intercept form, or the slope formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which is equal to 15 minus 3 over 5 minus 1, which is 12 over 4, which is 3. So this is going to be the slope, and I will immediately recognize that this is the only answer choice that has a slope, and you can always plug in the coordinates to make sure that it does fit into this equation. Number 10. 4x plus b over 2 equals 2x plus 8. In the given equation, b is a constant. If the equation has infinitely many solutions, what is the value of b? So first we need to know when is an equation having infinitely many solutions, and it's when the left side is equal to the right side. But before that, I want to simplify this. So I want to multiply 2 on both sides to make this look more simple, which brings us to 4x plus b is equal to 4x plus 16. Make sure to distribute it to the entire expression. And from here, very simple. Infinitely many solutions mean the left side is equal to the right side. Essentially, when everything is simplified, 0 equals 0. This is what infinitely many solutions look like. So in order to achieve this, let's take a look at our equation here. We have 4x, so that's subtracted, and we have b equals 16. And that means b has to be 16. That way, it's infinitely many solutions. If it said that there was no solutions, that means b would equal any number that is not 16. Okay, it means the left side and the right side is not equal to each other. So D is the answer here. All right. Number 11, what is the area in square units of the figure shown? Immediately, you should be able to simplify this, or else this becomes very complicated. So I'm going to split it down and recognize that it could be a triangle and a square. That way I can solve for this very simply. So this is probably the hardest part that students don't recognize. If I just created a square here, that means this length here is equal to this length over here. Let me use a different color to make it more noticeable. This length here has to equal this length here, right? Because it's a parallel line at the top and bottom, meaning that the left and right have to be equal to each other. So this is equal to 4. So once you know that, it becomes very, very simple, because the square's area is just the side squared, which is going to be 16. And then the triangle is going to be 1/2 base times height. So we just find this base here, and we know it's a special triangle, 3, 4, 5, or you can put in the Pythagorean theorem and find out it's 3. So when we find this 1/2 base times height, it's just equal to 6. So we have 16 plus 6 for the area of this figure, which is 22, answer choice B. Number 12 is, what is the y-intercept of the graph of y equals 4 to the x in the xy plane? I like to break it down. So immediately, y-intercept, what is that? It is the y value when x is equal to 0. So go to bare basics, especially when they give you a slightly confusing equation to try to throw you off guard. Think of what is a y-intercept. So it's the y value when x equals 0. So all you have to do is plug in x equals 0 into the equation, and when we get y equals 4 to the 0 power, this equals 1. So 0, 1, because x equals 0 and y equals 1, which is our answer choice C. All right, 13, x squared minus 14x plus 40 equals 2x plus 1. What is the sum of the solutions to the given equation? So we have to first find the two solutions. So we're going to simplify this, bring everything on the right side to the left side in order to make a quadratic equation. And we are able to get x squared minus 16x plus 39 equals 0. Break that down into x minus 13, x minus 3 equals 0, x equals 13, x equals 3. So the sum of the two would be 16. Answer choice D. 14. When the speed, so very, very long text. I actually, when I really take the SAT, I don't read any of this because when I look at the answer choices, I immediately recognize this type of question as a question where I just need to rearrange and solve for V, right? Because V equals, V equals, V equals, V equals, right? So it's basically rearranging this equation into V equals. So I'm going to solve for this variable instead. So I'm going to divide S on both sides first. So L divided by S is equal to square root of 1 minus V squared over C squared. Then I'm going to square both sides to get rid of the square root. And we get L squared over S squared is equal to 1 minus V squared over C squared. Next, we're going to subtract 1 on both sides. So we get L squared over S squared minus 1 equals negative V squared over C squared. I'm going to divide the negative 1 on both sides. So we get negative L squared over S squared plus 1 is equal to V squared over C squared. And then I'm going to multiply C squared on both sides. So we get C squared. And then I'm going to switch the order of it just to make it look more simple. So 1 minus L squared over S squared is equal to V squared. And the final step is to square root it. So we get V is equal to square root of C squared over 1 minus L squared over S squared. And when I take a look at the answer choices, the answer would be A, except one thing is that the C squared actually was taken out as C outside of the square root. So A is the answer here. Number 15, the half-life of a certain substance is about 150 years. Which of the following exponential functions best models the amount AT in grams of the substance T years after 200 grams of the substance is applied to the aquatic environment? Basically, it's saying that the start is 200 grams. So the base is 200 grams. And every 150 years, it's going to cut in half. Okay, so this is a really important concept. And if you don't understand it once, I think it will always bite you back because this question is a favorite of the SAT makers. Basically, 1/2 cut in half every 150 years. So I want you to make sense of this. Essentially, everyone is typically stuck between C or D. So I'm going to focus on these two. And people will actually usually choose C, which is the wrong answer. And let me explain right now. Let's say T is equal to 150. When T is equal to 150, in other words, 150 years has passed, we should expect it to cut in half. So this portion should equal 1 because this is 1/2 here, right? It's doing its job right here. So every time T equals 150, the half should happen, or this little portion, red portion, should become 1, right? So the reason why C is incorrect is because let's imagine T is equal to 150 years. You're going to have 150 multiplied by 150 as the exponent of 1/2. It doesn't make any sense, right? Basically, when T equals 1, when 1 year has passed, it's already having 150 times, right? And that's why you have to make sense and plug in to D for that to make sense. Essentially, when this is 150, when T is equal to 150, it halves one time. When T equals 300, it halves a second time. When T equals 450, it halves a third time. So every 150 years, the half is happening. right? So the exponent will become 1 every time t equals 150 happens. Number 16. The graph of y equals mx plus b, where m and b are constants, is shown in the xy plane. What is the value of m? Basically, what is the slope of this line? So I'm going to choose 2 points, 0, 4, and -1, 2, and plug it in to the slope formula, which is again y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 4 minus 2 divided by 0 minus -1 is equal to 2 over 1, which is 2, which is our answer of the slope. Number 17, we have two equations, and it's asking for the value of y. If you've seen my previous video, I like to emphasize the importance of the elimination method. In this case, I guess this is the one case I'd rather prefer you to do the substitution method because it's a very simple equation. So in this case, since I'm looking for the value of y, essentially I'm going to solve for x equals first. So x equals 5 minus y. So if you're looking for the value of y, it's easier to find x equals and plug that in, so that you are left with the y value. If you're looking for x, vice versa, you should look for the y equals and plug that in order to find x right away, or else you'll be doing a little extra work. But x equals 5 minus y, and then let's plug that in here. So we get 2 times 5 minus y is equal to 5. 10 minus 2y equals 5 minus 10. And we get -2y is equal to -5, divide by -2, and we get y equals 5 over 2. So you can always plug it in as 5 over 2 or 2.5 on the answer sheet. Okay, number 18. What positive value of x satisfies the equation above? So all you have to do, since they're all multiplying to one another, we have to make sure this is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. And the answer is either x equals 3 or x equals -1, but the only positive value is x equals 3, which is our answer. Number 19, what value of x satisfies the equation above? So I'm going to add 0.6 on both sides. And I get 3x is equal to 2.4, divide that by 3, and x equals 2.4 over 3. I'm going to simplify this by just multiplying the top and bottom by 10 to make it easier, and then make sure you have the most simplest fraction. So we're going to simplify this down to 4 over 5, which is our answer. All right, last question for this section. A square is inscribed in a circle with radius 6 square root 2 inches. What is the perimeter of the square in inches? So let's draw this out first. So there's a circle. Excuse my horrible drawing, but a square is inscribed inside it. And the radius of the circle is 6 square root 2. So many traditional people will do 6 square root 2. Now what? Like, what am I supposed to solve here? Okay, so here's probably the most important part you have to recognize is that it could also mean this part. A radius could also mean this part of a circle, any part of the circle, right? So let's zoom into our square we have here. And essentially, this portion here is 6 square root 2. And we want to find the perimeter. So I'm going to do a little bit more work and basically think, okay, this is also 6 square root 2. And the most important part is looking for these parts of the triangle, right? Essentially from here, you have to be able to recognize that since we split the 90-degree angle of a square in half, these are going to be 45 degrees, 45 degrees. And essentially we have our special triangle of 45, 45, 90. So given that, we are able to solve for the sides, which is just going to be 12, meaning that the perimeter of our square is 48. If this was helpful, make sure to give it a like. You can comment anything that you need for the SAT, and hopefully this was helpful. Bye.